The Hammersmith nude murderers were a series of murders in London, England in 1964 and 1965. The victims, all prostitutes, were found undressed in or near the River Thames, leading the press to nickname the killer Jack the Stripper, which is of course a reference to Jack the Ripper. Despite the intense media interest and one of the biggest manhunts in the history of Scotland Yard, the case is still unsolved to this day, and all forensic evidence gathered at the time is believed to have been destroyed or lost. He struck seemingly from out of nowhere. A small area of London lived in fear and that he would kill again. Women lived in fear that they had the potential to be the monster's next victim. Several prostitutes were slain in secret and left in the gruesome way that they were left. The first victim was Hannah Tailford, who was discovered in the river under a pier towards the upper mall close to Hammersmith Bridge on February 2nd, 1964. Her underwear was stuffed into her mouth. 2 months later, on April the 8th, Irene Lockwood, 26, was found a few hundred yards upstream on the Thames foreshore. Then on April the 24th, a 22-year-old woman, Helen Bartholomew, was found dead in an alleyway off Swincombe Avenue in Brentford, West London. This time there was a clue: small flecks of paint on the body. The same pattern of paint colours was also detected on the body of Mary Fleming, who was found in a sitting position at the entrance of a garage in Berrymead Road, Acton, on July 14. Detectives were still trying to track down motorcar spray painting promises when Margaret McGowan, who went by the name Frances Brown, was found dead on November the 25th. Her body was hidden under the rubble and a dustbin lid in a civil defence car park in Horton Street in Kensington. Finally, on February the 16th, 1965, Bridget Birdie O'Hara was found behind a shed on the Heron Trading Estate in Acton. Much speculation has been and continues to surround this case, and it is still a case that remains unsolved to this day. Detective Chief Superintendent John DeRose was recalled from his holiday at the time to lead the manhunt. He had police women at the time dressed up as prostitutes to walk the streets of Notting Hill and sent officers across West London, but the police had little success to force the killer into exposing himself. DeRose announced that he was gradually whittling down the suspect list, but the arrest never came, and the gamble appeared to have didn't pay off. DeRose later revealed in his book Murder Was My Business that his prime suspect had committed suicide before they could arrest him. The suspect was identified by writer David Seabrook as Mungo Ireland, who gassed himself with exhaust fumes in his garage on March the 3rd, 1965. Ireland left a note reading, "I can't stick it any longer. P.S. To save you and the police looking for me, I'll be in the garage." There are now conflicting opinions, however, that this man didn't do anything and it was just a frame job by the police, that they needed to pin this on somebody, so they pinned it on him and he couldn't defend himself. But there's still some that do believe he is the murderer, or was the murderer. Another potential suspect was boxer Freddie Mills. A former Sun reporter claimed the killer was no other than boxer Freddie Mills, who was found shot dead in his car in Soho in July 1965 in a suspected suicide, but again this has never been proved and the case still remains unsolved to this day. As many people have their own theories on this case and what they believe or who they believe did the murders, I would love to know your views on it. Who do you think is the main suspect? Do you think it is any of the two that I mentioned, or could it be somebody else? The fact is that all the evidence has been lost or destroyed. They didn't have a great deal of evidence to begin with, but everything they did have is gone. And this Jack the Stripper seemingly just disappeared, just like Jack the Ripper did, just vanished into thin air. Albert Fish was, and still is, one of the most horrific and notorious cannibal serial killers in history. Albert was born on May 19th, 1870. His real name was Hamilton Fish, but he chose to use the name Albert after his dead brother. A child rapist and a cannibal, he boasted that he had children in every state, and at one time stated the number was around 100 in total. The criminal activity of Fish started at a young age, and by the age of 20 he was working as a prostitute, and in his spare time would sexually assault young boys. Fish ended up marrying and did manage to live a somewhat normal family life in the suburbs of New York City, and even had 6 children. Later, he met a 19-year-old man called Thomas Kedden. He took Kedden to where he was staying at the time, and the two began a sadomasochistic relationship. Fish ended up torturing Thomas for 2 weeks straight and cutting off half of his penis. Fish once said that I shall never forget his scream or the look he gave me, although Fish was originally going to kill Thomas but later changed his mind and instead let him go. In 1917, his wife had left him for a handyman. She left the children but took nearly everything else. After Fish had a breakdown and began suffering with auditory hallucinations, and he began to self-harm by inserting needles into his groin and his abdomen area. Although there was no evidence that Fish ever abused his own children, he did encourage them to paddle him with a nail-studded paddle. It was around this time Fisher's obsession with cannibalism began, when he started eating only raw meat. He would also serve it to his children. Between the years of 1919 and 1930, Fish would regularly mutilate and kill children. His preferred victim was mentally handicapped or African American, as Fish assumed they wouldn't be missed. His first confirmed murder was that of Francis McDonald, followed by the 4-year-old Billy Gaffney. Fish tortured Gaffney to death, cut him up and threw his remains into a pond. His most famous victim, and the one that would lead to his arrest, was that of Grace Budd. Aged 10, Fish originally planned to kill her brother but changed his mind after seeing Grace. He managed to lure her away from her home by asking her parents if he could take her to his niece's birthday party. Fish then took Grace to an abandoned house, choked her to death, and then cut her up and began eating her over the next 9 days. Fish ended up sending a letter to the mother of Grace, and this would lead to his capture, as the paper was traced back to Fish. In the letter, Fish goes on about how the famine in China led to cannibalism. At the end of the letter, he goes into detail how he killed her daughter Grace. As the letter is quite disturbing, I won't include it in this show. But if you do want to go and read it, it is out there on the internet for you to read. Although it was clear he was insane, he was still put on trial and executed by electric chair. It is said that Fish had to be executed twice, as the first time it did not kill him. Some believe this may be down to all the needles that he had used before in self-harm, and somehow that had caused the electric to short circuit. Albert Fish was executed on January the 16th, 1936 at 11:06 p.m. and was buried in the Sing Sing Cemetery. His last words were said to be, "I don't even know why I'm here." Albert Fish was one of America's and the world's most heinous, horrible, evil serial killers.